Hi, and welcome to the Saved, Healed, and Made Whole podcast, where holistic health really can be simple, affordable, and attainable for you and your family. I am your host, Cayla J. Esteban. I am a biblical naturopathic doctor at Sozo Holistic Healing, where I work with natural-minded moms to find healing in mind, body, and spirit. So go grab your favorite cup of herbal tea, take a deep, relaxing breath, and we'll get started. Welcome to this is the very first guest interview that I have for the Saved, Healed, and Made Whole podcast. And I'm very excited to introduce Alicia DeVore. And Alicia is a garden educator who has dedicated her career to helping individuals and communities cultivate giving gardens that promote health and wellness. With a master's in education and years of homeschooling experience, Alicia understands how deeply gardens can impact both personal and community well-being. Her approach to gardening extends beyond growing food. It's about creating spaces that offer mindfulness, healing, and connection. Through her easy to follow guidance, Alicia empowers people to build successful giving gardens in just 4 simple steps. Her mission is to make gardening accessible and enjoyable for everyone, showing how a well designed garden can nourish not only the body, but also the mind and soul. So, welcome, Alicia.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you, Kayla.
Yeah, so Alicia and I, we were just part of a bundle. If you're on either one of our email lists, you might have already participated in that bundle. And we just kind of got to chatting, and we turned out we live in a very similar place, or she used to live where I live. So I did just want to say real quick, I've had a time crunch today and I'm not able to get my usual audio set up. So hopefully the sound is not too bad. I didn't want to risk messing something up and having no audio and having to redo the whole interview. So apologize for that. But Alicia, so I'm really grateful to have you as my first guest. And can you tell us just a little bit of how you got into gardening to start with?
Absolutely. About 12 years ago, I was living in a tiny, small, little home in Los Angeles. And my oldest son at the time was about 10 years old. And he's like, Mom, can we start a garden? And I was homeschooling. And I'm like, Mommy kills anything that's green. So I don't kill kids, but I kill green things. So I don't think so. And he was like, Please, Mom, I just want to see something grow. And he's one of those kids that just does exactly what you ask. And how could I say no? So we had fostered and adopted for many years. And this kid has just always been my biggest help. So I was like, okay, I asked my husband to build a couple beds in our backyard, our very tiny backyard in Los Angeles. And we started growing that summer and everything died, literally. And I was just like, see, but I went ahead and I called the soil company that we bought the soil from. And I'm like, hey, everything like turned yellow. What's that mean? And they were like, oh, it's missing nitrogen. So they came and they threw something in my soil, probably very toxic, not organic. And I thought, okay, so I just threw seeds out there for the fall because in Southern California, as you know, Kayla, the weather is so pretty much it's pretty nice and there's not frosts and things. So you don't have to worry about those kinds of issues with Southern California. And so I threw in seeds and I had lettuce, peas, I had kale, I had chard like growing like crazy. And I would take my morning coffee out and I'd spend time thinking and praying. And those moments were so restorative to my crazy life with homeschooling and doing foster care visits and being an adoptive mom that I just gravitated towards that space of my own healing and my own like space, white space to think. And it didn't even matter if nothing was growing at the moment. It was getting out next to the soil, next to something green that really was rejuvenating.
Yeah, that's awesome. I noticed you used the phrase giving garden. Can you explain a little bit about what that means?
Now, I believe that a garden is more than just the food and the things that we can take from it organically. I really believe that a garden provides a space, like almost a respite, a place where you can breathe, where you can think, where you can't control what's going on necessarily, but you have to watch and observe where a sprout takes days to come up and germinate, and where things all of a sudden you go out to your garden, you're like, wow, this was produced. And there's a sense of joy, accomplishment. So in a giving garden, it's a garden that may not produce everything you need at that moment for food, but it is producing and giving back to you, kind of like the Giving Tree. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
Yeah.
But that book is a great illustration of a big tree that gives back to
Mhm.
the person that it loves. And when I think of a garden, I think of I'm able to take care of things in small increments, and I'm able to receive things in small and big increments back. So,
Mhm. That's awesome. I love that kind of gardening philosophy. Um, can you tell us, you kind of touched on this a little bit with your own experience, but could you tell just in general, like what are kind of the health benefits, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, of having your own garden?
there were studies done for mental health and well-being, and basically these studies reported that there is such a positive association with anything that's green, like a green space, to your mental health, to your well-being, that there are actual organizations now that help, like a horticultural therapy organization that will come alongside different types of therapies to enhance, to increase healing and well-being. There are studies that it helps all ages. But if you have a garden for special needs, for populations like people over the age of 65, for mental health purposes. Gardens have been found to be associated with increased physical activity, increased excitement, pleasure, health. It's such a wonderful way to reduce stress and just improve your well-being. So when you think of cortisol levels, I try to walk on a treadmill at about 3.0 every day for about 45 minutes, only for the purpose of reducing my cortisol levels. The same thing happens when I walk out to my garden. So I try to get out to my garden at least 10 to 15 minutes a day, um, not only to get some vitamin D, but to be able to reduce the cortisol levels. So inflammation in my body will be reduced and I can think more clearly.
Mhm. That's awesome. I remember when my first baby was born and I had like, I don't want to say like traumatic birth, but it was difficult, and my postpartum early days were very, very difficult, and I was like I was supposed to be in bed for 2, or just like not getting up for 2 weeks. And like my one thing of sanity is like I would go out and sit on my patio for 5 minutes. And I feel like that was just like the thing that I clung to that really, really helped. And I wasn't even in direct sunlight or anything, but it was just being there. And I would hold my baby and I would just like look at the sky and the trees. And it just like was a miracle for me. Yeah.
There's something that recalibrates our whole systems, but I feel like we have so much technology. We have so many things coming at us, so many demands as moms specifically, that it's so hard to know what the next step is, not only for our families, but for our own hearts. And I have to be super honest with you. I spent so many years giving to everybody else. I'm 52 now, so I'm like pretty old. And I have spent so many years, I've been homeschooling for 18 years. My youngest has autism at age 15, and I still homeschool him. Um, and I've given back so much that I gave away part of my
Mhm.
heart and part of my personality. And so going out to the garden has helped me in that restoration process of who am I? What do I expect of myself? What do I expect of others? Um, what what can I just relax in? And so it's given me a chance to say, I don't always have to be mom. I don't always have
Mhm.
to be productive. I don't always have to have the laundry done, or I don't always have to respond. Plants don't need me to respond.
Yeah, I like that because I mean, as a mom, our kids, they don't usually give back to us, and that's fine because that's kind of how it's supposed to be. But at least your garden gives back to you. So That is really cool. I don't know if you are familiar with Saint Hildegard von Bingen, if you've ever heard of her before.
No,
So she's
no.
kind of like the patron saint of my business, and she was a saint and a nun in the medieval times, and she got these like divine visions from God. And she's kind of like to me the original biblical naturopathic doctor because she would talk about like healing people with nutrition and herbs, and she kind of was she had these philosophies where people called it like ecology theology or like the green mass because she really believed in this connection between like our souls and green things, and she saw like we have this kind of ethical obligation to live in harmony with nature and with these like nature outside us. She had this Latin term, I don't know if I'm saying it right, it's like viriditas, I think, and it's called like the greenness of God. And she saw
Mm,
like God as like being green, and our connection with like nature, it was like this life-giving force of like this back and forth thing that was our connection with God. So it's really cool how like it's like what you were saying about the mental health stuff. And I do a lot of mind, body, and spirit. So I love that it helps you physically and it helps you mentally, and it also really helps you spiritually too.
yeah, no, all of, and, when you think of the first garden, like,
Yeah.
why did God create that first garden? It
Mhm.
all started in a garden. There
Yeah.
has to be so many beautiful beginnings. And when I think of a garden, I think of a beginning. Like every season is a new beginning for me. I start it right. I give the nutrients it needs. I begin with compost and my amendments. And then I decide and make a little plan. Okay, what is going to grow in this garden? And how do
Mhm.
I protect it? And that's just a lot like our relationship. I mean, honestly, with God,
Mhm.
He's always adding nutrients into our life if we let Him. And he's always wanting to build up the things. Or maybe this is a season of winter where I just put a cover crop on my garden and I let the nutrients like the roots take hold and the protection of that cover crop to cover the soil of my life. I mean, there's so, and that winter is not dead. That winter is a growth period. It's
Mhm.
a building period for spring, for something new, for something I'm ready to do. And so, I mean, there's so many wonderful analogies within the giving garden of how
Mhm.
God can restore us.
That's
And
really
I'm
cool.
definitely in the middle of a restoration period. So I'm taking this and talking in full authenticity of where I'm at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine that, like, being in tune with the seasons and needing to keep tabs on like what grows when and preparing for that. I could imagine that kind of like helps you with your daily life, like being in tune with those cycles. In springtime, like maybe we're starting some new things. In summertime, like maybe we're full on going. In the fall, we're kind of winding down and getting more like, what's the word? Like admit not administrative, but kind of organized. And then in winter, we're just like resting and reflecting. There's something about our like as women, our monthly cycles that kind of follows that spring, summer, fall, winter season too. So I love the idea of like as women being connected to nature and feeling that like being in, I think women especially are kind of made for cycles in that way.
Even the moon cycles.
Right.
Um, like it's the Farmer's Almanac will say, make sure you plant when it's full moon. And some people take it really weird. But the scientific fact of it is that the moon provides more sun or
Mhm.
light, not sun, sorry, light. And so as the
Mhm.
light is generating, yeah, of course our plants are going to like that better if we plant it when it's going to be lighter the whole day. And so it's just how do we light up? How do we receive the light? And when it is the cycles, it's all, yes, it is a cycle of life.
Yeah, that's actually it's interesting. That's true for fertility also. If you're able to line up your ovulation with the full moon, it supposedly like gives you a higher fertility rate. So that's really interesting how the moon affects like our seeds and our
Yeah.
plant seeds too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It's
really cool.
fascinating. It's fascinating all the connections.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So you mentioned that you were a homeschooling mom. And so I'm assuming that that you kind of touched on this a little bit, especially like with the special needs and with foster kids, but could you tell us like how a garden could be really helpful for our kids' health and for kind of our relationship with our kids?
So I'm speaking from experience. Not only have I homeschooled and continue to for the last 18 years, but I teach live gardening classes to homeschool kids. So I have 4 to 5 classes a week. So I do 12-week semesters, and I also have an online program for 12 weeks that is from nothing to garden to help homeschooling families grow gardens together. And so from my experience, I mean, even just this last week, watching kids, every week I send home a seed and a plant, something that they get to grow at home. And, having them come back this week, it's week 3 of this semester, and they're like, Mrs. DeVore, our radish seeds are growing. I mean, just the excitement that kids get. And I'm like, well, in like 30 days, you guys are going to pick it and you're going to eat it and you're going to taste it. And so just to give them that excitement, like yesterday, one of my classes, we did bush beans and I had plastic little containers that they can see the soil. And I'm like, the whole purpose of this is so that you can see the roots starting to root out as your bush bean is getting bigger. And for my older kids, I was like, you guys get 2. So you get an A and a B. So place them in places that you're experimenting with the light, with indoor, with outdoor, with, how much of that light they're getting or not getting, and see what works the best. Bringing that curiosity into learning automatically brings science, brings thinking skills, brings quietness because they have to wait, patience, learning how to water something only a little. Like, so some of the kids are like, my seeds didn't sprout. Did you water them? No. My dog knocked it over. Okay. Or yes, I watered, but I watered a lot. Okay.
Mhm.
And we talk about, having the appropriate amount of water. And all of that is teaching our kids how to care for something,
Mm.
how to bring life to something, how to watch for something. So the life skills that responsibility, that thinking about something else other than themselves, like all of it comes to a space where you can add so many more academic processes. So I do have like a 5-day grow a garden with your kids without getting in a garden with just books because I have a master's in reading, and so I love books. I probably have over 400 books in kids gardening just because literature is such an avenue to our kids' hearts. So even if you don't have a garden, if you go to the local um, library and grab my list, and I've got over 30 books in there that you can start with subjects of how to learn how to garden with a little activity each day, just to stair step into that idea together. Because I have to be honest, the kids are ready to learn and grow. Parents and people, and I get it, I've failed, have failed, or have had a hard garden, or their garden just didn't grow, or there was failure in the garden. And
Mhm.
so they have to overcome quite a bit to
Yeah.
be able to see that they can be successful one plant at a time too. And it took me needing my oldest kid to say, Mom, we're going to do this. So I just want to encourage parents to try again if you haven't had a chance, or if you did and it just felt too hard and you don't want to fail in front of your kids again. I get it. We fail every day. But a garden can be a space where they can be creative, have curiosity, and those two pieces to that's homeschooling right there.
Yeah. And I can see a lot of like life lessons that you can pull out of that, like delayed gratification and like consistency, showing up every day to water something, or like even, the sensory of getting in there and that satisfaction of like, I grew this with my hands and now I get to eat it. Like, yeah, that's really cool. Like, that sounds really exciting. I love that you even make it accessible to, if there's a mom in New York City who has like very, very limited growing options,
Yeah.
and to still be able to go through that book list with kids, or
Yeah.
'cause I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so my 3-year-old we're like maybe just starting to get into some of that stuff. But like the 1 year old, he's going to start eating the dirt. So if we
Yeah.
start with the books and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I love that you've made it kind of accessible to anybody who's willing to just at least get their toe dipped in with that one.
Yeah, because if you give them vocabulary and language right now, then they'll be ready for it in a few years. That's such a great concept. So having them even talk and process and become experts in their own spaces.
Yeah, I love that. Like you mentioned too, that there's almost like a bonding experience, I think, when you like succeed and fail together and like teaching a
Love
kid
it.
how to deal with failure, like being a
Love
plant
it.
killer and like that consist or like resiliency of like, okay, yes, our spring crop completely failed, but it's summer now. We get to try again.
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool.
Such a great life skill.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I am also a kind of chronic serial plant killer. So what advice would you give? You kind of touched on this a little bit already, but like what advice would you give to a mom who's like, "Oh my goodness, I just can't right now cuz like everything I've ever tried to grow just dies."
Yeah, I would say start small, number one. Get one container that is self-watering. And what that means is that at the bottom of the container, you can water it either at the bottom or at the top, and it waters itself. And so you just fill that up once, like a week, depending on how warm or hot it is in your area. And the roots are going, whatever you plant inside, the roots are going to then uptake all of the amazing nutrients. And it only takes the water it needs. So having a self-containing watering experience is you're doing the watering, you're doing a small container, and then the third piece is make sure you have some great organic potting soil in there. And fourth, pick something you're actually going to either eat and like, or something you're going to love smelling, or something that you're going to love seeing. And I would place it definitely in the sun. Now, in Southern California, Kayla, you got it lucky. Like I'm working in 100-degree weather right now in Northern Cal, and I have friends who just went through major rainstorms this last week with all of the crazy that happened in the weather. But you can plant something indoors in a self-watering container and have a light above it, and it will forever grow. It is growing with the light. It doesn't have to be a special grow light. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Just put a light with it.
Mm,
Um, and have things grow. So I work at a therapy site and I do their gardens. And so one of the therapy sites, I work with their garden managers, and the garden manager, there's no space in this one site. So we got a self-watering container, and I had an Amazon light sent to her, and she's growing basil and snap peas and in this one tiny little space that has like a little trellis. So you can do, she had no experience and she killed the whole other garden I planted. So I'm just saying she is very encouraged. It's self-watering. There's a light. So there is possibility for you to see something indoors if you want that control,
mhm,
or like if you live in a space that is the temperatures are crazy, or you live in a Southern California, grab a little pot and put it outside and just remember to water it with your kids and you're going to do okay. So right now I would plant lettuce in the fall. I
mm,
get a package of seeds for $3.50. It doesn't matter which kind they are, and I would place them all over. Let your child, your 3-year-old, put it all over and scratch it in
mm.
and water it every day and watch it grow. And that's what I would do.
That
You don't
sounds
need a
awesome.
self-watering container, but that just
Yeah.
makes it easier, and watch it grow. And in about 50 days, you can count it and you'll have some lettuce. And by Thanksgiving, you guys can have a lettuce for Thanksgiving meal if you start it this week or
Yeah.
next week. So it's that fun.
Would you like stagger the seed planting so you don't have all the lettuce growing at once, or is that not really
So
necessary?
my tip is to do a cut and come again. So go
Mm,
ahead and plant them all right now in your small container. When you get more advanced, yeah, you'll do successive planting where you're going to plant a couple rows and a couple more. But for right now, you're going to do a cut and come again where you cut off a third of the outside of all the leaves and you keep it growing for 3 to 4 months.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I love like I love just like a little bit of lettuce in my sandwiches, but I don't necessarily want to buy like a whole head of lettuce. So I love that idea of like I'm just gonna get a little snip, a little here, put it on my sandwich for the day, and like
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
And I
What
have
would
a vertical planter that I use that I mean, it's 30 different things in one space and I takes me
Mhm.
20 seconds to water. Something like that would be really fun to use. Just
That's
saying.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Hmm.
What would you recommend? So you mentioned the lettuce. Is there anything else that you would recommend for like beginners or somebody first starting out to grow that's like very easy and low maintenance?
I mean, root vegetables, not carrots. Those aren't easy to germinate. So we won't start there. I have a tip for that that helps you grow carrots, but um, radishes and beets to just start growing are really fun for kids and very quick growers. Um, Sometimes they don't always come out amazing, but it's the beginnings. And you can use the greens for smoothies and stuff.
Mhm,
But another quick grow for right now, I mean, lettuce is really one of my favorites. Um, I'm trying to think. I love bok choy. Bok choy
mhm,
grows really well for everybody from seed, this tiny nothing, and bok choy just grows, and you do the cut and come again.
mhm,
Love bok choy, and I love daikon radishes. So
mm,
Daikon. They look like large white carrots, but they taste amazing in stews, and I
mm.
use them as potatoes because we're not as carb um
Okay.
heavy in our family. So I put them in stews and stuff, and it takes about, I don't know, like 100 days for those to grow. But
Mhm,
once you pull one out, you're like, this is amazing. And they grow easier than a radish and a beet.
mm.
And I would go to the farmers markets in LA when I
Mhm.
lived there and
Okay.
specifically go for the daikon radishes because they don't taste spicy and they're
Mm.
yummy cooked. So put a little olive oil and salt and you've got a really good win.
Nice. I don't know if I've ever had one, so you're inspiring me to check it out now.
I love daikons. Yeah. Go to the farmer's market first with your kids. And
Mhm,
I always love to do a taste test with my students and my families that I say, go to the farmer's market, pick one fruit or veggie, and then go to the grocery store, pick the same fruit or veggie, and you come home and you do a taste test as a family with everybody's picked fruit or veggie. And just did this 2 weeks ago with my Simple Gardening Method families. And overwhelmingly, the kids are like, the taste of the farmer's market is just so much better. And I'm like, that's our motivation. That's our
mhm.
motivation to grow our own stuff. So I want you to know that it's worth it. So have a taste test with a Dacon just for fun from a farmer's market. And enjoy that and see what that and the bok choy from a farmer's market versus a grocery store.
Yeah, I have heard people say that all the time that like homegrown food tastes way better. So I know that is kind of maybe more of a concern for people right now that just like with groceries and inflation and money, like tight money and stuff like that,
Mhm.
especially with something like organic produce. Can you kind of share what would be really great, like money saving, budget friendly, like how to save money by growing your own groceries versus buying them, stuff like that?
So my best advice is to go for seeds. So plant from seeds. I can get a package, like I said, of lettuce seeds, like 100 lettuce seeds that are tiny for like $3.50. And I can use that for a year and a half or more. So I would recommend starting from seed. And if you're doing your own tomatoes, if you're doing your own like peppers or eggplants for the summer, I would learn, and I've got a little mini course on it for a 3-day, 3-part mini course, how to grow from seed successfully indoors. And
Mm,
I grow about 100 tomato plants and like 20 to 30 eggplants and 20 to 30 peppers on my own. And I've saved so much money because I went to Home Depot a couple weeks ago and just was looking at their plants. And I was like, I wonder how much a broccoli plant is because I didn't have a chance to grow my own broccoli seeds this year or seedlings. And I went, it was $5.95 for a broccoli plant.
mhm,
I'm like, that is not worth it. So I went to another tip is to go to a local nursery, and I went to a local nursery and they had a 6 pack for $5.95 of broccoli. And I went ahead and did that savings instead of buying a big one. But if I just started from seed, I would start it in July. Takes 12 weeks
Mm,
before I start planting that out for fall. So it does take some process of thinking but if you have things set and you just know July, I got to start broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage, and then everything else you plant for fall is by seed. That's what I do in the middle of September in my area. Then I have my whole fall garden ready to go.
that's awesome.
So if you
That
just start thinking in little processes like that, but you start with one thing, start with your lettuce, get
mhm,
confident in that, get excited about it, have
mm.
fun with it, add to it bok choy and some spinach, find the varieties that work for your family and for your area, experiment, don't think it's your fault, try some different things. Yeah,
Yeah, I think like embracing that learning process, huh? Like that trial and error and stuff. Yeah.
start small.
Mhm.
Go
Yeah.
confident, start small.
Well, I
Mm-hmm.
love it because you have a very great vibe of like it's a great like mom energy of like you can do that. Like you got this. It's great. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can see you
Mm-hmm.
being a really great cheerleader, and you're kind of inspiring me too. I've had this package of lettuce that's been sitting on my counter, and I've been waiting for these heat waves to be done before I plant it. But you're really inspiring me to get into my gardening more. So for other people who are listening who are feeling that inspiration, how can they work with you or like what your offerings are?
Yeah. I have different little mini courses that are wonderful. Like I have a container garden challenge that I just created. I'm doing a garlic growing masterclass this month. Um, Normally all those things are available in a membership that I have, but I am shifting gears from my membership as of today, actually. So at this point, if you want to work with me, I do one-on-one consultations and I have so many wonderful courses. You can contact me and we can figure out what is going to specifically help you. I also have the 12-week course for families who want to garden. You don't have to be a homeschooler to be a part of that. And I'm going to be offering that as an evergreen or a weekly Zoom with me is how I do it now. So I offer it twice a year. And so you have that support. But some families just want to do it on their own. And so I'm going to be starting to offer that this next week. So follow me on YouTube. I just did an amazing fun, and I don't like toot my own horn because it's not my personality. Um, but I just did a YouTube today that was released this week on 10 things to grow for your health.
Mm.
And it's an excellent YouTube with great information that will be encouraging. And if you follow my YouTube, I will be doing a lot more on health and wellness with gardening, and I'm focusing more on that. So be on the lookout. I've made some KDP products that I'm going to be releasing for mindfulness in the garden, and notebooking in the garden and that kind of thing. So as you have needs, I would love to hear about it. And if you have a therapy site or if you have a population that you're very passionate about, I would love to hear about that population. I would love to hear about the special needs or maybe senior living homes or workplaces that you would like to bring some of this help and healing and wellness into your businesses. And that's something that I am really good at. So, if I can help facilitate in growing things so that the environments that you are in or the people that you love are in would be more of hope. That's what I would love.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really helpful to have somebody to be able to give you that feedback of like, why are all my leaves yellow? Or like, I can't, these bugs are coming and be like eating my tomatoes or something like that to be able to have
Yeah.
somebody that can like support you and you have such like a great way of making me feel confident in myself
Good.
too. So to like have that kind of person to fall back on to provide that advice, I can imagine it sounds like a really valuable investment for people that want to be healthier, not just physically, but like what you were saying, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So that's really awesome. And I believe you were sharing a lot about lettuce. I believe you have a free
I
something to
do.
author.
Yeah, I have a 5-day lettuce growing challenge. And Kayla, that's what I would recommend for you. It's just got 2-minute videos and it has downloads that go with each day. And it is a really quick little challenge that's super fun. And I've had great feedback from people who have done it. So things in that information, it'll tell about the different types of lettuce and how to do it. And I show you out in my own garden from last year. So take a look at that. So yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alicia, for joining us, for being my first guest. Thank you to
Oh,
everybody
thank you for
for
having me.
listening.
I feel so honored. I didn't, thank you.
Yeah, it's been really great. I feel like I learned something myself. I feel like it inspired me, and hopefully it inspired other people who are listening too. So I hope everybody else, you and everybody, has a very blessed day, and we will see you next time.